you. Thank you. It's a great honor and privilege for me to join you here today. I've done a number of lectures and discussions here in Japan, but this one is something special. The subject I teach is philosophy, moral and political philosophy. And often, in doing so, I put hypothetical questions to the audience and invite people to respond. It's the way I do it with my students at Harvard and the way I've done it with many groups here in Japan. But this lecture and discussion is different. It's different because the examples, the questions we are going to discuss today are not hypothetical examples. They are examples drawn from real life, from the actual experiences and struggles that the people of Tohoku are facing every day. Now almost 2 years since the great earthquake and tsunami. And so today, the questions we're going to discuss are not questions to test you. They are really questions to test philosophy, to test the idea that by gathering together as a community, facing big challenges, challenges that go to how to rebuild lives. We're testing the idea that as a community, we can gather and reflect together, maybe even argue and disagree together, and learn something. And so, I'm not really here to give a lecture. I'm not here to give you answers. I wish I had answers for some of the hard questions that you've been struggling with. I really come here to listen, to learn, and also to join with you in a discussion of some of the ethical dilemmas, the moral challenges that you face, that the people of Tohoku face in the reconstruction. And so you might call this lecture, our discussion tonight, less a philosophy lecture than a kind of civic gathering. A civic gathering to see whether philosophy and reasoning together in public can help. You might call it an experiment in the philosophy of everyday life. Now, I would like to begin by recognizing that this experiment may or may not work. In part, it's up to you. Most of the people here are residents of Tohoku. Some of you are students, others members of the public, who wrote statements of purpose, little essays, to NHK and to Tohoku University. And many of those messages, those statements of purpose, were deeply moving. And I've had the opportunity to see some of them. One of those statements put a kind of gentle challenge to the experiment I've just described, the one we're going to engage in together. And the challenge came from Mrs. Sakano, who was born and raised in Sendai. Mrs. Sakano, are you here? Where are you? If Mrs. Sakano is here, put up your hand, or even stand up if you're willing to. Yes? Okay. Now, Mrs. Sakano was born and raised in Sendai. She's a graduate of this university, and I'd like to read out her challenge. People in Tohoku are shy, Mrs. Sakano wrote. They would rather persevere by themselves rather than hurt others. That is their character. It was lauded and praised just after the earthquake as a virtue, this shyness and perseverance. But on the other hand, the people of Tohoku would choose not to argue, not to express their true feelings, if it would create a strained atmosphere. So, Mrs. Sakano said, so today's discussion might not work. I want to thank you for that challenge. And I want everyone here in the room to take that challenge seriously and to see whether together we can respond to that challenge successfully. Thank you for that challenge. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sakano. Thank you. To begin, I would like to ask you your attitude toward the way the reconstruction has gone and your expectations for the future course of the reconstruction. There has been, I know, a lot of dissatisfaction with the slow pace of the reconstruction and the inability in many cases to agree on decisions and choices that are crucial in setting the course of the future reconstruction. So there's been dissatisfaction. I would like to begin by asking for a poll to survey the opinion here in this room about what you think will be the ultimate result of the reconstruction. If you had to choose one word to describe your view about the future course of the reconstruction, how many would say that you are optimistic? And how many of you would say that you are pessimistic about the reconstruction? We have programs with a white side and a red side that can enable us to vote. So if you are optimistic about the reconstruction, raise the white side of your program. The white side if you are optimistic. How many are optimistic? And if you are pessimistic, raise the red sign. All right, now I didn't quite do this right. So let me do it again because we want both the white and the red to be up at the same time. So let me ask that question again. I'm just practicing. Let me ask that question again. If you are optimistic about the reconstruction, raise the white side. If you are pessimistic, raise the red side. It looks like there's a division of opinion, pretty evenly divided. I think I see a few more white signs than red signs, about even, I suppose. All right, thank you for that. So people disagree about whether to be optimistic or pessimistic given the pace of the reconstruction. Let's begin with our first concrete issue. What to do with contaminated soil in the Fukushima district. Radioactive soil and other debris that needs to be stored somewhere if the decontamination work is to proceed. What should happen to the contaminated soil? Where should the preliminary storage sites be located even before it's decided where will be the interim and the long-term sites? So let's take a look at a video that describes this debate, this dilemma about what should be done with the contaminated soil. So here we see a very pressing real-life dilemma. Here's the question, and let's take a vote. Where should the contaminated soil go? How many of you would be willing to accept a preliminary storage site near your home? If you would be willing to accept a preliminary storage site near your home, raise the white card. If you would not be willing to accept a preliminary storage site near your home, raise the red card. Here again, there's a difference of opinion, but the majority, I think, raised red cards. The majority, though it's pretty evenly divided, would not be willing to have a waste site, a preliminary waste site, near their home. All right, thank you for that. But this raises a question. If half of you, or perhaps more than half, would not want even a preliminary waste site near your home, what's the answer? Where should the contaminated soil be located? Let's begin our discussion, and I would like to hear first from someone who raised the red card, someone who would not be willing to have such a site near his or her home. Tell us why, and tell us what should be the solution instead. Who will begin our discussion? Yes, stand up and tell us your name.
My name is Shun Ibazaki. I'm a senior economic major at this university. I oppose to the opinion that I can store some contaminated soil near my house because if I were living by myself, it would be perfect, or it would be acceptable to have some contaminated soil near my home. But I have family, and this is personal, but I have now a girlfriend. So my life is no longer mine. So my solution to the question is that we should put the contaminated soil wherever there were no residents or residential areas or quite remote area would be acceptable. Right. That is my opinion.
All right, thank you for that. A concern for your family, for your relatives, for your family members, for your girlfriend. And you don't want to expose them to radiation risk. Is that the reason, those of you who raised the red card, who would not be willing, is that pretty much your reason as well? Is there someone who has a further reason, those of you who would be opposed to locating one near your house? Yes. Stand up and tell us your name.
村田翔太と言います。宮城県の隣の山形県で今大学生をしています。で、私も同じように仮置き場自宅のそばに置きたくないっていうのは山形の米沢市というところに住んでるんですけれども、そこに福島県から被災して来た方っていうのがたくさんいるんです。で、私は一人暮らしのアパートなんですけれども、そのアパートにも結構家族の方が来ているので、 その方々は結構その放射能が怖いということで逃げてきている、逃げてきている言い方ですね、避難してきているんですけれども、そういう方々はその嫌なのにそのように汚染された土壌が来るというのはなおさらちょっと違うんじゃないかなと思ったので反対させていただきました。
Good. Okay, thank you for that. Now let's hear from someone who raised the white card, someone who would be willing to have a disposal site, a preliminary disposal site near your home. Who's willing to explain the reason for accepting it? Yes.
My name is Naohiro, and the reason why I'm willing to accept preliminary site near my house is that someone must do that, after all. And also, it's just preliminary, After some years, it will be located to another area. So if someone must do that, I will, Mm-hmm. But there's one condition for that, which is, government or some officials, come to my house and explain explicitly, where the relocation of my, preliminary nuclear materials will happen. I think if that kind of explanation is done, I will happily accept, those kinds of materials. That's my opinion.
And let me ask you a question. Have any government officials come to you and explained how long the preliminary sites will remain, and where the more permanent sites will be?
It depends. I don't know, but I think what I can take is like a few years, maybe.
All right, here. Let's do this experiment. Let's suppose I'm the government official. Mm. I come to your house. Mm-hmm. And I say, we're trying to get everyone to agree to put the preliminary site nearby. Mm. You've said you're willing. Thank you for that. What do you want to know from me?
Sorry?
What assurance do I need to give you to get your final agreement?
I think...
Ask me a question. I'm the government official. Ask me the question that you would want answered.
What kind of compensation are you ready to pay? If...
But now you're changing the question. I thought you were going to ask me, how long will it be here? How long is preliminary? Isn't that? I thought that was your first question. Mm-hmm. But you forgot about that question when I finally arrived. Now you want payment.
But, we need some kind of guarantee, that, the situation will never, go wrong,
A guarantee, but it's radioactive. Mm-hmm. Now we have sheets, protective sheets, to put over the contaminated soil. Does that reassure you?
Yes.
Thank you. But now I need a more demanding resident to see if I can satisfy them. Who else would refuse and can explain why? Yes, in the very back. Stand up. The woman just on the aisle. Yes.
東北大学の職員をしております渡辺と申します。私の場合、福島の実家の家族のことを第一に考えまして、実家では農業を営んでおります。で、農業を営んでおりますと、やっぱりその土の質ですとか安全性というものがとてもリアルな問題となってきますので、もし保証を、訴えるのであれば、そういった作物の損害ですとか、そして数年信頼が回復するまでの間、どのように保証してくださるのかということを訴えると思います。
All right. So, for those who object to citing, it's really an objection that comes in the form of questions you want answered. So, let's see if there are other questions people would want answered before agreeing to have a preliminary disposal site, contamination site, near their home. What other questions would you want answers to? So one question is about compensation. One question is about how long. Yes, what would you want to know? Stand up.
盛岡市から来た市川と申します。仮置き場ですので、仮の期間はどれくらいなのかということを質問したいです。仮が例えば1年とか2年ではなくて、状況によっては50年とか伸び伸びでもっと長くなる可能性もあるのではないかということで、そのあやふやなことが心配ですし、あと仮にその場では半年ぐらいって言ったとしても、なんだか引き延ばされるような気がして、現在の復興のなんか遅れてるような感じなのも合わせて、その辺がとても気になります。
All right, stay there. Stay there with the microphone. So you want to know how long is preliminary? And you want an assurance from the local official or the government official as to how long the preliminary site would be located there. And what answers have you heard so far? How long do you think that they will be there, the preliminary sites, before they're moved?
パッと言われたときに想像するのは1年とか2年の範囲だと思ってしまいますが、それは本当の仮にしては長いかなと思います。
1 or 2 years would be too long.
はい。
So for how long would you be willing to accept it?
感覚的でしかないんですけれども、やっぱり半年とかかなって思います。
6 months.
Yes.
And do you think that as a practical matter, the preliminary sites will be moved after 6 months to more permanent locations?
実際は思いません。
And so you voted that you were unwilling to accept it?
Yes.
Yes.
はい。
Okay. Thank you for that. Now, we have here an official, the head of a ward in Date City, Fukushima, Mr. Sato. Is Mr. Sato here? Who has struggled with this problem. I wonder if we could ask Mr. Sato to stand and tell us about his experience in trying to find a place for a preliminary storage site in
仮置き場の決定するまではですね、6カ所ぐらい一応探したわけです。それで結局年数が何年になりますかということが一番のネックでございました。
So that was the question we just heard. How long? And what was your answer?
はい、それで市の方では、ね、3年ということで、見通をついて、お話ししております。ただ浜通りですか、そこに中間処理場ということで、説明なさっているようですから、3年で、仮置き場はなくなるなということでございます。
3 years is a preliminary site.
はい。3年で終わらなければ、それ以上また何らかの保証をいただくような形になると思います。
So 3 years, and if it takes longer than 3 years, then there might be compensation.
はい、そうです。それで一応は中間処理場を早くできないと何年でも置くような状態になります。そうすれば避難している家庭、子どもさんおりますが、安心して地元には来れないと思いますので、中間処理を早くやっていただければいいと思います。
Let me ask you this, Mr. Sato. You estimate, or the city estimates, 3 years. How likely is it, do you think, how likely is it that it will be longer than 3 years?
そうですね、五分じゃないですか、その以上、はっきりは申し上げませんが。中間処理場のあれですね、箇所が何度も言いますが、そこ決まらないじゃどうにもならないですから、そういうことで、五分ということです。
Yeah. And have you, now, when you tell your people 3 years, but there's only a 50-50 chance it'll be 3 years, are they willing to accept near their homes?
家の近くにはもうダメですね。そういうふうになればね。なんとかね、中間処理場を何度も言いますが、決めていただこうかないんです。
But it hasn't been decided yet.
はい、そうですね。今国の方ではいろいろとそういう案を練っているようですから。
Not yet. Stay there. I want to call on those who said they were not willing. I want to go back to those who were not willing. Will you stand up again? We'll get you a microphone. And who is the person here who said because of your family and your girlfriend you're not willing? Stand up again. And we'll get you microphones. And I would like the two of you to put a question. Let's do an experiment here to see how this works in the real world. Now, we have Mr. Sato, who's trying to work this out. And we have two residents who are skeptical, who are unwilling, who want to ask you questions before they'll agree. So let's hear what question, ask a question to Mr. Sato, who's asking you to agree to locate a preliminary site near your home. What question would you like to ask him? And then we'll hear what he says.
すみません、じゃあ便宜上っていうかちょっといろんな感情が皆さんあるかと思いますが質問します。それではまずその期間っていうのは確実に守られるのですか。
その仮置き場の期間ですか。
はい。
期間はね、先ほどお話しした通りですね、中間処理場ができなければ、それはできないです。延長をするほかないです。
中間処理場はいつできるんでしょうか。
それはですね、国の方で現在やっておりますので、どういう形に作るかはちょっと私らもよく分からないんですが、とりあえずそういう箇所が浜通りにありますから、そういうことで、現在国の方さんでやっております。
自分は先の質問者の方と違って群馬県出身ですので、直接の被害者というか被災者ではないので、あまり感情的な質問っていうのにはならないと思うんですけど、やっぱりもし自分が今その立場に立った時に一番知りたいことっていうのは、例えば3年っておっしゃられましたけど、その期間のうちに何らかのその土壌からの影響があって地震なり、その地震の身内に健康による被害が出た時にどの範囲までそのコンペンセーションとしてカバーされるのかっていうことと、あともう一点としましては、国がその最終処理場を決めるっていうお話を先ほどからされてるんですけれども、その自治体レベルとしてじゃあ国が動かなければ最終処分場はもう見つからないのかってすごく憤り感は感じるので、その下からのボトムアップの動きとか、そういう最終処分場を探そうというもっとなんか自発的な動きっていうのはないんですかね。
今のところは国さんに頼っているほかないと思います。カリキュバでさえやっと見つける状況でございますので、なかなか難しいと思います。
あとその補償の範囲であるだとか、その具体的な健康面で被害が出た時の補償金額とかっていうのは、どのようなガイドラインにのっとってやられるのかなっていうことは、もし自分がその立場になったらお聞きしたいことなんですが、その点についても伺っても大丈夫でしょうか。
そういう健康面の関係については私たちらもそういうふうなあれは考えてはいないんですよ。ただ置き場というところで除染をして、子どもさんたちが避難所から安心して帰ってくるような状況ということになります。
It's not easy being the head of a ward. These are hard questions. Yes?
大変ですね、本当。
All right. Thank you all for that exchange.